the Evolution Security Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Evolution Security Podcast. As always, I am Aaron Davis here with my twin bro, Eric Davis. How you doing, bro?
Well, doing wonderful, especially with the awesome guests we've got and the very fact that you are on the show with me, because it was looking like you might not be able to be on here with me. So I'm pretty pumped that you're here.
Well, I'm glad to be here because I didn't want to miss this episode with our good friend, Craig Douglas from Shivworks. Now, to many of our audience members, he does not need an introduction. But if you are serious about self-protection, you need to go to shivworks.com. That is shivworks.com, and check out his coursework, including Extreme Close Quarters Concept, otherwise known as ECQC, Edge Weapon Overview, also known as EWO, or the one that Eric and I have not gotten to take, but man, Armed Movement Instructors, AMIS. Someday we're going to take that. That's just a list of some of the amazing courses that he offers, and ask anybody that's taken any of those. They are life-changing. That's not hyperbole. It's been life-changing for both Eric and I. So with that, Craig, we want to change it up, buddy. We want to focus on what your training is like, because we see how much you travel. We know you well enough to chat with you every now and then. You're dang busy. So, we wanted to chat with you about your training life in between all this travel you do, teaching all these awesome courses.
Sure, man. So it's been very limited, honestly, by the health issues I've had over the past year and a half. I had a vaccine injury, which sidelined any personal training, probably from December of 21 till about May of 22. And then I started getting over that. I could barely make the road show and just teach like I normally do. I started getting better May of 22, started going back to jiu-jitsu and lifting. And then at the end of June, so 30 days in, I tore 3 tendons off of my pubis symphysis, fairly catastrophic core injury, and then had to have surgery 2 months later, which I had done in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to reattach those tendons. And then started, I took I think 3 weeks off from the time I got cut till I taught the next class, and I was pretty sore and I couldn't do much. But with Brian and Scotty, I could have them body double the things, that required a lot of physical exertion. As I talked people through it, I could still run the range. I was sore at the end of the day, but I gradually just grounded out and got to a point where I could start sort of rolling lightly with people I know in jiu-jitsu around probably February of this year. And then I started going load bearing and doing some light hypertrophy around April. And then, I've been fairly continuous until about probably 6 weeks ago. I had a shoulder injury. Thought I had torn either my supraspinatus tendon or my labrum. Just had imaging done on that here about a week ago, and nothing's torn. It's just a real severe case of proximal shoulder bicep tendonitis. So it's just a matter of rest I've been popping it with a peptide BPC 157 TB 500 blend to help heal that, and then kind of get back into doing some strength training. So that's that's honestly, it's been more dealing with injuries and illness more than it's been training here for almost probably 20 months. It's been tough.
Well, Craig, one of the things that we're going to hit on a few more details because we can kind of even go back before some of that too.
Mm-hmm.
However, first off, we want to congratulate you on receiving your black belt recently in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, so
And
that was
go ahead.
coming, and Mike, my instructor, was going to give it to me last year, and then I got hurt. And I tore those tendons, and I couldn't train. And I'm living mostly in Texas right now, and my BJJ instructor that brought me from purple to black belt, Mike Sanford, he's back in Biloxi, Mississippi. So I would go back and forth, checking on the house, and I would train there. I train with Brian and Scotty on the road.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so they're both obviously really good black belts. Scotty always comes out for the close coursework that we have, and we have a regular contract that we do for a government entity at a BSR in West Virginia. So I see Scotty about every 6 weeks. So we would spend like an hour and a half, of mat time working on things, and him giving me pointers and mainly rolling. They both of them know me really well. They're both world-class black belts, and it was very sporadic, but intensely focused training. That kind of got me to the point where I could sort of train through the injuries, and then I went back and forth between Texas and Mississippi several times. Did a lot of intense training with Mike, and he finally saw fit, I guess, after 29 years, more off than on, of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to give me my black belt. So he did. I still don't feel like one, or what one is supposed to be, but I do okay. I do fine. So it's a milestone certainly in my martial arts history. I've been doing martial arts throughout childhood and all of my adult life. Martial arts combatives, something like that. So it's pretty cool to actually receive it. It doesn't define me. It's part of what I do, and I don't love it like many people just love it and nerd out on it, but it is essential, and I hung in there long enough, and I think I'd be proof that if you show up long enough and put in enough work, you can achieve that goal.
Well, excellent, and frankly, and this is completely intended to be a comment, and you tell this story fairly often, and I know a lot of our audience members have probably heard you say this, but I think it says a lot. Number one, to your dedication, how busy you are too, but that how many people have had their first exposure to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in ECQC that have become black belts already.
Yeah, I think
And
I was going to say, I think it's 9 or 10, Eric, at this point,
yeah,
that have actually made it all the way to being black belts. It was 9 or 10 last time I actually bothered counting, and that's been a few years ago. I'd say it's more than that now. It's probably 15, 16 guys.
yeah.
Who's
I think it's a cool testament.
Yeah.
To be frank, and I'll ask you this though, and this is I'm bringing myself into this story. It took me 11 years to go from blue to purple.
Yeah.
so and for a lot of the same reasons, injuries, deployments. Every deployment, unless there was jiu-jitsu, was almost like a reset for my training. And then I changed gyms twice
Right.
during that process too. But frankly, I'm going to be upfront. There were times where I kind of felt like, well, you know what? I'm a decent level blue belt. I need to focus on the weapons based environment
Right.
more. And that was honestly a big part of it too. I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on this. But now I am in that desired realm where, Aaron and I just turned 50 this last week.
Right.
And, I definitely have a goal of getting my black belt,
Sure.
by the time I'm 55.
Sure.
So, continue to work on it. But anyway, yeah, 11 years is a long time, and I feel you for certain. But again, congratulations.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I think honestly, it took me 7 years from purple to brown,
Yep.
something like that. That I think that was the longest period of time where I was actually like more actively training than just doing BJJ at seminars. Because I mean, I did BJJ through seminar format. I've done that since '94. And again, it was just something I did sporadically, once or twice a year, that kind of thing, and would incorporate it like at the police academy when I was teaching there. So yeah, it wasn't steady until more or less steady with like an actual school until probably the 2000s. You know, so still, 20 something years almost probably of more on than off.
Well, I wanted to interject, Craig, that I kind of appreciate what you said, that you don't love it, but it's essential. I think I am on the 10-year plan to purple myself.
Right.
I just got my blue belt. I haven't hit it as hard as I feel like I should, but I just have. I mean, you see all my guitars around me. I wake up every morning and practice guitar an hour and a half. I'm really into shooting. I've gotten back into competition, but when it's almost like not really practicing what I preach. Whenever people talk to me about self-protection, I say, if you're going to do anything, get fit and then do jujitsu. And one of these days, I think I'm gonna be better about that. But hey, I'm going tonight. I went the other night. I do really enjoy it, and if I don't love hitting the gym, I do love the idea of at least being involved with it and learning, even as slow as I am. So
Yeah, and I enjoy it, but I'm not one of those guys that nerds out endlessly on every permutation of leg entanglements and footlocks and passing variables and things like that. And I think with anything that when you become beholden to it, it starts to define you. And at the end of the day, I am most concerned about fighting, and how fighting applies. I enjoy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but again, it just doesn't it doesn't light me up, the way other things in the self-defense realm light me up. I like other things, most of which are not even physical at all. That's kind of what lights me up more than anything. The verbal agility, social literacy components, um, all those soft skills, the things that are fairly esoteric that most people have never even thought about, much less trained, much less physically trained. Figuring out training modalities for that kind of stuff. I enjoy that. My presentation at the Combative Summit that John is doing for the Combatives Association, my module is weaponizing language for tactical end states. And
Cool.
people look at that one. What is that? Well, Craig's doing it. So I think I bought enough goodwill and have a good enough reputation at this point to where if I throw out something strange like that, people can be like, huh? But still give me their time and focus. And we're going to talk at length about that kind of stuff. And again, the reason I'm doing it is because nobody else is. And as people will see when they do the module, it's as essential as any physical skill.
Well, Craig, first off, that was going to be one of the next things I was going to say is that, man, I am so pumped that I get to be there at the summit. And I've asked for your class. I'll see if I'm privileged to get into it. I hadn't seen anything back from John just yet.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. I saw that. And again, I'm super, super pumped about going. I am curious, how much related is it different than muck? Is it similar? Does it add to it?
It's so the drills that we do where we add in the verbal layer to throwing the eye jab, and we experience trying to hit the default position under um a verbal task load. Think about that, but expanded proactively in more detail with more defined strategies and then
Nice.
practice time. In other words, if you want to preemptively hit somebody, what kind of things can you say and what kind of things can you do to draw them a little bit closer, make them stick their chin out, and make them drop their hands? Right.
Yeah, this sounds great.
We'll talk about stuff like that. The flip side of that coin, experiencing an emotional assault, which I'm doing more and more, and having people experience more and more, because a lot of it has to do with the times, right? With people being emotionally assaulted by social media, mainstream media, by people in the street, and what that actually does to your motor processes, and how effective it is in debilitating someone to the point where they can't even physically defend themselves. So I'm going to do some fairly controversial things. I'm going to deliberately poke some very current hot button issues on purpose, and I'm gonna have people experience that and feel that.
Yeah, sounds excellent. I'm looking forward. I hope I'm in it. I sent my request sheet back right when I saw it, so
Right.
hopefully I'm privileged. But if not, I'm sure that I'll still get to learn during the process.
Yeah.
Just some quick admin stuff. Now, October 28th, I'll be teaching our Evolution Security Defensive Pistol 1 class here in the Tulsa area. Go ahead and go on to Eventbrite, and you can hunt that down and come and train with us. It's going to be a blast, a great concealed carry focused class. And we want to implore you as listeners to go out to iTunes and rate and review our show. And then, of course, share the show to your friends and tell them they can listen to it anywhere there are podcasts. You can get our show. So we really appreciate the help in getting the show out there.
One last thing on jiu-jitsu that can be pretty quick, and then we'd like to move on into weightlifting. And there's some mental aspects to my questions in the weightlifting aspects as well. But back to jiu-jitsu really quick. Gi or no gi for you? And then lastly, what is your jiu-jitsu deep dive right now. I know you just got back to it, but just a quick little couple of questions on that.
I don't really, I do more gi, or excuse me, I do more no gi simply because the no gi and MMA classes are during the day. And my preference
Yep.
is training during the day versus night. If I do heavy physical activity past 5 p.m., I don't care whether it's lifting weights or doing jujitsu, it really affects the quality of my sleep.
Yeah.
So it's really, I mean, if we had more gi classes during the day, or if I go to a place, here in Dripping Springs that had a noon gi class, I do more gi, So, that's really it. I think you need both to be well rounded. My face tends to get scuffed up more in gi than no gi.
Yep. Same
Because I just
here.
smash my face into people a lot. So, as far as getting, abrasions and burns and looking beat up, I look more beat up when I'm doing more gi. And gi tends to probably beat me up more than no gi. It does.
I think ultimately, I definitely train in gi more these days just because availability of classes. I do kind of like how I can slow it down a little bit. I'm just being honest,
Mhm.
with the gi, I can slow things down a little bit.
Right.
Um, but also for the progress within, my own training, that's why I've been spending, but I prefer no gi.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm one of the coaches for the 0600 class at my gym. To kind of hit on what you were saying, I would, man, if our black belt was in the morning, excuse me, at the morning classes, if he could, I mean, he's busy, teaching the other classes. That's probably the only time I would go.
Right.
I just prefer to get my workouts done early in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I had been running a long series of no-gi stuff, and all the folks that show up to that 0600 class were, said they had an awesome time. So I'm going to do that more often, doing more no-gi in the
And
morning.
as far as what I'm working on in jiu-jitsu, honestly, the thing I've been doing more here lately, and Brian has inspired this, is I'm using Shivworks content on the ground more and more to roll with, particularly the two tabs, the bundle and the split seat belt.
Oh yeah.
So
On the ground. Okay.
Brian uses both of those, like in a really nasty way, for top half passing, and it's punishing, it's punitive, and it's exactly congruent with what we do standing in self defense. So I've been playing with that quite a bit, and it's funny because before Mike gave me my black belt, we were rolling, and it was in that time period where I'd gotten better and I'm starting to roll now. But I caught him with the bundle as we teach it from top half, as we teach it, and passed him. And when we broke, he was like, "Do that again." And I said, "You mean the bundle?" He said, "Totally did not see that coming." He said,
Awesome.
I know you showed me that before in the standing curriculum, but did not see that coming." So I got it, and it worked really well to pass his guard. So I don't know. That may have been a decision for him to give me my black belt. Who knows?
So are you passing on the arm drag side? Is that how you're passing on the arm drag side, or are you using it to
You're
pass
passing on the
on?
wizard. You're passing on the wizard side. If
Okay, yeah,
he's gonna
gotcha.
underhook, right?
Yep.
And all I'm going to do is whizzer across, and I'm going to catch it far side arm, and I'm going to just get heavy on him and
That
crush him down with chest pressure, and it's fairly nasty, and it
ah,
keeps him from doing a whole lot of anything until you can, kind of, windshield wipe your hip back and forth, and work your way out. It works really good. It works really good. And because your arms are crossed like this, right? I mean, just when you expand your chest, it's a lot of uncomfortable pressure, and it's really easy to flatten a guy out from there. So, but everybody goes for that underhook, right? They always, that's what they're going to do when they're fighting out a top half or bottom half, is to go for that underhook. So the bundle exploits that, and nobody,
Yeah, that's.
and nobody,
I tell you. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
no,
Craig.
nobody sees it coming. And we just haven't
Oh,
seen we haven't seen a lot of guys, even though I think more and more guys are at the highest levels are starting to like combine arm entanglements with leg pummeling more and more. So it's just, to me, that's interesting because it's congruent with what I do, and I do nerd out on training efficiency and that kind of thing. Reductionism and congruency. So if we can take what we're already doing in the self-defense curriculum and apply it to the sport curriculum, or a sport curriculum. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool, and that's something I'll actually nerd out on.
Well, I'll tell you, I can't believe I hadn't thought about trying to use the bundle on the ground. I'm, but anyway, I guarantee you, I wrote a few notes here, and next class I teach, I'm gonna bring that into the class and start playing with it. That's awesome.
You have to translate for me, bro, later.
Sure will. I'll put it on video, and I even pass it to Craig. Make sure I'm doing it in the light that he's using it. I think I understand now the way you described it.
I think what
So
we'll do, actually, I'll assign Brian because we're off for a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
He just opened his jiu-jitsu school in Clearwater, Florida. So I may just
Oh, wow.
tell him, hey man, shoot a video of translating the bundle in gi and no gi from top half back.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so we can just put it out there to everybody.
Oh, that would be. I guarantee you, Craig. Everybody's
No,
gonna wanna
don't put
see
it
that.
out to everybody, Craig. Come on.
Yeah. So he was out with Andre Galvan, right? And so he was in California, correct, Brian?
Yeah, Brian was on the Atos comp team for over a decade. I think he did every ADCC camp with all those guys. JT Torres with all those dudes for over a decade. Andre gave him his black belt. Brian's a different level of jiu-jitsu. And for a while, he was a full-time jiu-jitsu guy. I think even before he got into law enforcement and joined San Diego Police Department. So I want to say, yeah, for like a couple of years after he got out of the Marine Corps, Brian's full-time job was jiu-jitsu. That's all he did. He was a jiu-jitsu nerd. So, he would train daily, 6 hours a day between jiu-jitsu and strength and conditioning. He was a freak.
Well,
He still is a freak.
Yeah, he appears that I've never got to train with him, but everything. Plus, he's just putting awesome social content for you guys and for our audience members out there that may not know. That's Brian Frias, correct? Is that how he pronounces it?
Yeah, that's how you pronounce his name. Brian is actually our first employee. We've hired him. He's on a salary between training and the products group. So between that and running his jiu-jitsu school, we pay Brian not quite six figures, but close. We make enough money between the two sides of the company to pay an employee a good wage. To basically come out an AI for me. He handles all the website traffic, most of the emails now for both training and products, and does all the social media. So he earns his pay. But
he does. He does an awesome job.
Yeah, Brian does a good job, and he's made the company more profitable. I mean, since he's been with us, I think products have gone up as far as sales from this time last year, tracking social media activity like 28%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Awesome.
he's earned his keep. He's earned his keep.
And in this Biden's economy, that's saying a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, that was probably a stupid way to put that in there, but
No, I don't care.
no, that's awesome. Well, Craig, then let's go ahead and jump into weight training real quick, and I just want to premise it with this. Number one, we all know about your catastrophic injury. You know, those of us that know you well, and a lot of folks that may not know you are tracking as well
Sure.
from some of your social posts. But one of the things that really stands out to me is the times when, I mean, when you started lifting and you started, you know, putting on a decent amount of weight again.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing that stuck out to me was that you would comment about overcoming fear. And I just wanted to talk about that for a minute because number one, I know about that with my catastrophic event when I blew my L5S1 back in 2018. And I still deal with those fears today. And, you know, I just wanted you to, you know, expound on that for both myself and the audience because I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know this, if you have a catastrophic injury like I had, you know, and when I tore those two tendons, basically off my pelvis, you know, I was under load. I was doing a triple, planning to doing a triple, a back squat of 335. I've done that weight for 8 before, so it wasn't a particularly heavy day. But you know, when I went down that second rep, I've never been shot, but it was probably the closest thing I could imagine to a good hit, like a good CNS hit, you know, from a handgun round. I mean, it immediately broke me in half. I mean, there was no holding up of the weight. I mean, literally. I just buckled structurally, not just from the pain. The pain was immediate. I felt pain similar, but the structural, the way it gave structurally, you know, it just broke me. You know, so that loss of control with 335 pounds clattering down. Thank God I, you know, rightfully had the safety bars up.
Oh yeah.
And that was a huge lesson because I have like squatted before without safety bars.
Yep. Same here.
Um,
And pretty heavy too.
it's something I'll never do again with not even warm up weight. You know, I put safety bars in the rack even when I've got warm up weight. You know, I may not do that with the bar. You know, but if I throw in a plate, those safety bars are going up. Period. They are.
Well, Craig, real quick, I don't mean to cut you off. You probably saw that. I think he was in Indonesia. Did you see that? I guess you would call him an influencer. Some weightlifter
Crushed himself.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's serious business.
Yeah, I saw that. It is. So yeah, so the immediate loss of control, you know, and after I think I laid there in the rack, balled up in the fetal position for probably a good 6-7 minutes before I was finally able to. And I thought initially I'd blown a hernia out. I didn't know what happened. I just never felt that kind of pain in that area of my body, nor had been physiologically incapacitated. So it was fairly frightening, you know. Finally, you know, kind of hobbled, you know, bent over out of the gym, and immediately drove myself to the emergency room. Got in there, and I told them I think I blew a hernia out. I've never felt anything like this before. I was back squatting. So they did everything they could, and a CAT scan That was the only we couldn't get an MRI done, but a CAT scan showed that that I'd torn the gracilis tendon, I think is what he said, off my off the pubis symphysis, and I didn't even know what that was. I went, huh? So I had imaging done within. Actually, that happened on a Sunday, and I had an MRI on Tuesday.
Wow.
Because my neighbor, his wife has worked for the largest orthopedic surgical practice on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for like 25 years. So I had got in there, got the imaging done, and then they looked at the imaging and told me exactly what I'd done. And said, we've never seen an injury like this. This is an unusual injury and an unusual mechanism for injury. And if it's repairable surgically, we wouldn't know how to do it. Whoa. I'm like, okay. So I had copies of my imaging, and I started farming that out to orthopedic surgeons around the country. I had hit, 5 different orthopedic surgeons in 4 states. None of them had seen that injury before. And they all, were like, I think you ought to just rehab that. So I was just at the point of doing that when one of my alumni reached out and said, hey, I've got a gal up here who's a physical therapist that saw your saw your video, and we were talking to her about it, and she thinks she might need surgery, and she has a surgeon you should probably talk to. So it turns out the surgeon that I eventually got to is a soft tissue abdominal core injury specialist. That's all he does. He's not an orthopedic surgeon. And it's a place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania called the Ventura Institute, and they're really the only ones in the country that specialize in this injury and similar, as they categorize them, sports hernia injuries, and most of their clients are the NFL. So I talked to him. I overnighted him a copy of the imaging. He said, you know what, if you were a normal person, I'd say maybe rehab, but if you ever want a guard in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu again, you're going to have to get this fixed.
Nice.
So I was like,
good deal.
Right. So anyway, so I had the surgery, and I had a great result with it. Fixed me. I'm pain free, and that's a long way of getting back to the story of managing being under load again, right? And not only manage that physically, but managing that emotionally, and in particular dealing with the fear of re-injury. So it's for me, it's a very gradual thing, and getting back into lifting, which I started doing like light hypertrophy work. Just to get, number one, just rehabituated to going to the gym every day, right? That was the first thing, because I'd completely fallen off on all of that, and was battling pain and depression and things like that and still having to teach, when I was going through the recovery part of this. And then going daily, just kind of showing up, accepting limitations, and trying to build my body back up, and get a sense of what it could do, and resiliency. So I started slowly trying to pick up stuff off the floor. I still haven't back squatted, but I've done everything else, and I'm not sure I'm gonna back squat again. I have not outside of body weight, or maybe single leg work, but putting myself back under load literally under. I'm still not there as far as that goes. So I'll do leg presses. I'll do pistols and things like that, and leg extensions. But as far as back squatting, and I'm not sure how much I need that at my age. I mean, I'm 55. So I'm not sure how much of a good idea it is to load my spine, with super, 400 pounds, that kind of thing. I'm not sure how much of a good idea that is. So, which is fine. I'm not a competitive athlete. I've never been a competitive athlete in anything, combat sports or strength. So, but the fear management process really was a daily and then in the moment thing. So, getting to a point now, and I've actually documented some of this in some social media posts where, hey, this is the first time I've picked up 2 plates off the floor. This is the first time I've picked up 3 plates off the floor. Okay, so here's a single for double. Here's a single for double body weight. 365. Here's a triple, and it's just a little. It was a very gradual thing with getting myself back, and I think I before the shoulder. But before the shoulder went bad, and I had this, not an injury, but just what I was dealing with. I think I did a single of 430 for my deadlift. It was a fairly easy single.
I think I remember you posting that, and that may even been one of the ones where I saw, and there was a couple of them. That's why I wanted to bring this up, and I'm careful to keep bringing myself into this situation, but it's literally why it meant something to me, is because I continue to deal with that, and I believe the proper term is kinesiophobia.
Yeah.
And I know I still deal with it, and I have not been. I squat sometimes with a bar, but it's light. Most of my leg work is done, heavier goblet squats with kettlebells. I do a lot of farmers walks. I do all kinds of step ups like that. And I'm like you, I don't know that I'll ever really lift back squats heavy again, because every time I do, I will have some form of a back issue because of the compression.
Right.
And my doctors have warned me that in my current condition, that's the issue. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, back to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Just so I hit that before before I had the shoulder issue, and I didn't have like a moment. Me and Scotty and Brian were doing a low vis, a black swan class, a week-long class for a 10th Special Forces group out in Fort Carson. And we were getting up in the morning and meeting those guys and either lifting or rolling before class started, and they were doing 10 hours of class. And so I remember, like, towards the end of the week, my shoulder was just really, really, really sore. And like the next week, I noticed it was really, really hot, and it felt clicky. And then when it started feeling clicky, I'm like, oh shit, what have I done to myself? So I immediately stopped, doing any kind of overhead stuff. It's very limited on pressing. I could still do some pulling, but it got more and more sore. And I ordered some BPC 157 TB 500 blend, mixed that peptide up, and started popping my shoulder with that. And that actually helped quite a bit. But that's the point I got to when the shoulder started going bad. I got to 430. So I'm actually going to go to the gym tomorrow.
Impressive.
I have not been to the gym in what, about 6 weeks. It's been about 6 weeks, and we've had a ton of classes. and I didn't want to aggravate my shoulder, in between classes, then travel and, be hunkered over and everything. So, but it's felt pretty
Makes
good.
perfect
And
sense.
I had to figure out what was going on with it. So I went back to Mississippi, stayed for a week, got again imaging. I got in with a PA. I got imaging done, and I met with an orthopedic surgeon all in 6 days. Which because that's where my network is, and then got that cleared. Drove back here to Texas, and I think we're a class. So
Awesome.
yeah.
It. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. So on your point about the fear management, I mean, it's just one of those things, man, where I try and keep myself calm. I don't look at what's on either side of the bar, and your mind is like remember that little wind up monkey with the brass cymbals that would bug his eyes out and bare his teeth at you. Him. Yeah. So to me he's fear, the fear monkey, and that's that's the image I have of my fear is, a bunch of and a bunch of noise, So I picture him in my mind, and I picture just, letting the cymbals kind of slow down, and until he's no longer, this cacophony in my head, and I can actually do what I want to do. I'll make little tiny adjustments. I did 360. Now I'm going to do 370. I'll add 10 pounds. And I'll look at it, and then a lot, and sometimes I'll fool myself. Instead of putting on a fourth plate, right, and seeing that big plate get on the side, versus, okay, I'm going to put on. It seems like it's easier, right, when you have a 25, a 10, a 5, and two 2.5s, right? You got all that change. It's the same amount of weight, but it's not the fourth plate, and
it's not the fourth wheel.
Yeah, it's not the fourth wheel, right? And it just makes it. Sometimes it makes it easier. You can trick yourself, So little stuff like that, and honestly, if I just wasn't feeling it, or I had to like really psych myself up, I just didn't do it. I'm like, that's enough. And being okay, honestly, with walking away from it and not thinking about that as a loss, not letting it bug me or anything like that. And I think that's one thing I've learned more than anything over the past 20 months managing all this shit is accepting age and limitations. I think that's been the biggest lesson in strength and conditioning.
Well, Craig, that's all super helpful. It really is, and I like your providing some visualization on what you're seeing. And again, folks need to hear, sometimes it is okay that you're not, you don't have to completely be in this linear progression.
Yeah.
Number one, all the time, and number two, your whole life.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain point, and Nick Delgadillo, forgive me, brother, out there. I think sometimes, that linear progression may not be always the best thing for us. I think most people that it can be. There's a few of us out there that it may not be the best thing at the time,
right?
And it's okay.
I think after a certain point, I think linear progression mostly, I think it always works in the very beginning. I mean, for the first year with Richard, who taught me the 3 lifts and the right way to do them, Richard Hawthorne, I would squat on Monday, I would bench on Wednesday, and I would deadlift on Friday. That's all I did for a year. I did no accessory lifts, and doing that and learning those 3 lifts and doing nothing but that, being very singularly focused, where, Richard's competition program was, we did 6 sets of 10 the first week, 4 sets of 8, second week, 3 sets of 6, 3 sets of 3, 3 sets of 6, and 3 sets of 3. So it was like a 6-week thing, and then we'd do it again, right? We'd repeat the cycle the next 6 weeks, maybe a little bit more weight, tracking numbers from the previous 6 weeks. But I did that, nothing but that, for a year, and it put 20 pounds. I actually put more than that. It put 25 pounds. Now, granted, I went on test cypionate. I didn't do anything else, but I went on test cypionate a little bit after I think I started lifting with Richard in like January of 14. I think I went on test in like May of 14. Because for a while,
I was gonna.
They didn't have my dosage right. So I got augmented, but I didn't do anything else. I wasn't tracking diet. I wasn't taking in protein. I wasn't doing creatine or anything else. I was doing a mill of test a week, and that's all I did for a year. And that put, let's see, I'm around 55. So how old was that when I started lifting with Richard? 46. I was 46 years old when I actually started lifting and training in earnest, and not just asking around in the gym. And it put 25 pounds of muscle on me. I mean,
I remember you going through that transformation,
yeah.
and because I, at that point, I think that the time when you went through that, I think I might have been the only one around. I don't think Rich but I was definitely your assistant, and boy, I could tell the difference in your strength levels, man. Absolutely. And I will say that's what I was going to ask you, because I've been on Sipinate since, so it would have been 2019 now. Yeah, so it was 19. I went on it, and I'm at 1 meal every 2
Yeah.
weeks. And I just couldn't remember what I was going to ask you, what you were on, because I knew that you had said you did. I was curious.
Yeah, it's a mill a week, and it's 200. Yeah. It's 200 milligrams. So it's well,
okay, yeah,
it's well within a a therapeutic dose. It's
absolutely.
It's not a lot of test. I think
intermuscular. Where do you do it at?
Yeah, so either Scotty or Lauren will give it to me if I have one of them around. They'll pop my shoulder, and if they're not around, then I just hit my thigh with it. So I am. I've got a large needle I draw with, and then a smaller needle, but it's still intramuscular. I think it's an inch and a half, please.
Yeah,
inch and a half.
That's what I use, an inch and a half.
Probably a 24 gauge. I think I draw with like an 18, but I stick with like a 24. I'll just buy extra needles and put those on there after I draw.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Even after all these years, I mean, it's not painful whatsoever, not whatsoever. But still, every time I got to go give myself a shot. But at the same time, it's worth it. I think sometimes there's, and I've been saying this for a little bit. I think the stigma is gone. I think that I think men need to embrace it.
Yeah,
we were. Go ahead. Yeah, we were talking with John Dobb about the same thing. We had him on not too long ago, and he was, speaking about his experience with it. So yeah, I mean, I make no buts about it. I tell everybody that may benefit from it, just to make it happen. It's well worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I am not a competitive athlete. I don't have to give blood or urine up to USADA. I'm just an old guy trying to stay in the game, and be able to train and stay healthy. So, I mean, I will use anything, when it comes to, for the most part. I mean, I haven't, I'm not using like multiple different, anabolics or anything like that. I use test.
Yeah.
I'll use peptides like epamorelin and CJC 1295. That's a big one. That actually that works for me really well because it stimulates your IGF-1, and
Oh yeah,
it
that's important.
it enhances the quality of your sleep. Recovery goes through the roof. The epamorelin CJC 1295 blends. Um, that stuff like creatine that actually works. You can actually feel. It's a fairly substantial difference when you can use that. Fat loss.
I need to look into that.
Yeah, Peptide Sciences is who you want to order from, and I think they're out right now. Same thing with BPC 157 for recovery. For actual soft tissue injuries, like you've got a ligament or a tendon that's not quite torn, but maybe close to it. That stuff works wonders.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm writing this stuff down because I could use some additional help.
Yeah.
Well, Craig. So I think this is probably excellent. By the way, I digress 1 second. Thank you for all that explanation. Very helpful to me, very helpful to the audience. I think that segues us, Aaron. You want to move into the next subject?
Sure, Craig. Just curious about this, since of course we know you're not a firearms nerd either. But do you what's your firearms training look like?
Mainly dry fire. I get out and do live fire when I can. That's fairly infrequent, to be honest with you. Outside of a demo or a few rounds fired on a lunch break at an ECQC. And I think the last time I focused on firearms training is when I was getting into the 365 ecosystem, and I was learning those guns, and I was putting a lot of time into those guns. So I was actually going to the range on a fairly regular basis, putting in time to the 365, the XL, the X, switching the slides around, getting different lowers and different dots. The macro. Acquainting myself with that system, I probably burned, I don't know, probably, and I binged like that, right? I probably burned then probably 30,000 rounds in like 7 months.
Wow.
And then I won't, shoot. I may shoot 1,000 rounds over the next 3 years. I mean, it's just, I binge like that. I really do. So, firearms training is important, but I mean, you guys know how I feel about, about a gun is that it's a very, it's an excellent problem solving modality in a fairly narrow spectrum of problems and a much wider swath of humanity.
Yep.
So, the actual marksmanship challenges presented in citizen, which is what I am now, self-defense, outside of, active killer events in public space at extended distances, outside of that, when we're talking about crime, robberies, carjackings, a mass crowd kind of event, those shooting problems are relatively, the marksmanship challenges are relatively rudimentary and straightforward. So that failing that part of it, I don't worry about. And honestly, when I end up role playing and red teaming, and I end up being a role player, which I don't do in like open enrollment stuff, but I do in closed enrollment stuff. Um, I don't miss as the bad guy with the sim gun. So,
Well, I'm sure you don't, and I was, I keyed in on something that you had said, Craig, and hope I wasn't cutting off Aaron with him about to possibly say the same thing, but I like what John Hearn says about it. That once you get to about a B class shooter, in USPSA, and that may even be on the top end of
yeah,
what you really necessarily need. But at some point, there's diminishing returns of how much time you're putting forth into developing that skill. Again, that's where, Aaron and I preach this all the time. It's like, hey, if you got a certain amount of skill, but you should be putting forth the time on the mats and in courses like your ECQC, or EWO. So
I think fitness is the thing that diminishes the quickest. I think fitness is the most perishable, and it's the thing that you have to stay on more than anything else. It's the thing you can lose
yep.
the easiest. I don't care whether it's strength or cardio. After that, I would say physical skill in fighting. Particularly groundwork. Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. Getting comfortable and competent, and I'm not sure you should ever be comfortable. Getting competent in groundwork, it takes such a long time because it's so um, counterintuitive to our normal locomotion as bipedal human beings. We're not quadrupeds, so locomotion in the horizontal plane on your side, your back, and your stomach on all fours. That's not how we move. It's not how we look. That's not how we work our way through space. So just learning to move freely, deny friction, and impose friction where necessary. Um, that is so alien and counterintuitive, right? That it takes a long time to learn that. It really does. It really does. It's way harder to learn than stand-up skills, in my opinion, and it is
Oh yeah.
a lot. And both stand-up skills and ground skills are harder to learn and more difficult to retain than shooting.
Well, I have to say, I've done quite a few difficult things, including, music my whole life, my accounting career, shooting. Jiu-jitsu is still the hardest thing I've ever
Yeah.
done. I don't know if it's my focus on it or my specific aptitude for it. But I still consider it the biggest challenge I've ever attempted. So it's interesting you're putting it that way too,
What's
or at
harder
least
for
it
you?
seems like that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and here's a personal question for you, Aaron. What's harder? And I'm not sure you can remember back this far, so you'd probably have to give it a thing. Well, what was harder, learning to shoot or learning to play guitar?
Play guitar.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I don't play any musical instruments. It's one of the great losses. One of my few regrets in life is not playing a musical instrument well. Just like not speaking a foreign language well.
Well,
Those are two
it's
regrets.
Eric can attest to this. When I started playing at 15, it wasn't my first musical instrument, but when I started playing at 15, I almost immediately started practicing a couple hours a day. And I quickly, through high school, played 5 hours a day for, the next 3 or so
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
I mean, and here I am. I'm 50 years old. I got all these things like this podcast, my job, my kids, but I would say that I spend more of my focus on it, all these exterior activities on guitar. I wake up every morning and play guitar.
Yeah.
I freaking love
Yeah.
it. Before Eric called me and said, "Hey, let's get on and chat a little bit," I was like, "Okay, let me get my stuff ready and we put my guitar away."
Right.
I could tell that. Even when I text you, I was like, I bet you he's practicing, which I could have I should have practiced a little bit today myself because I had a little bit of time. But yeah, you practice a lot more than I do on my drumming, that is. But
But shooting, going down that list, I mean, man, shooting a pistol OK, it's kind of like learning how to strum on guitar and play basic stuff is not too difficult. The guitar is one of the best instruments to learn to play some music quickly, but then to master it or be excellent at it, it's freaking deep. It is deep. It's deep like jujitsu. But then, I mean, shooting down that list, right? Like guitar and then shooting, then mid jujitsu, really. Shooting, you start getting into some nuance. But for me, I've come to realize too. For one thing, we've got a growing training business ourselves. Especially trying to offer something semi-national quality at the local level, and so I want to get as good at shooting as I can. I thank God I believe I'm already a good coach at shooting. I just want to be a
absolutely.
better shooter.
Sure.
And it's starting to become kind of a hobby again, right?
Right.
So I can probably shoot better, and I know I could probably shoot better than I would ever need in a real life or death situation. But it's just those outliers. It's kind of fun. The guitar stuff that I play, I rarely perform what I can actually play, but those outliers are fun,
Right.
you know. So, Eric, I'm gonna pass it back to you, man.
Well, Craig, we're kind of getting to a closing area of the show. We still got a little bit of time if you do.
Yeah.
Both Aaron and I are I got my jiu-jitsu bag packed behind me. I'm gonna be running out the door as soon as we're done to hit the mats at class. But that said, are there any new developments? And it doesn't have to be anything that you hadn't put out yet, but any kind of new developments within Shivworks that you want to talk about and highlight?
Ooh, well, we've got some new products coming. We've got some online training that we're working to premiere in a video format, and then we will probably have some instructor development public coursework offered in two specific areas of the Shivworks curriculum. So we've got some cool products. We've been working with Andrew Henry a lot to kind of turn Shivworks more or less into the safari land of cutlery. So
Yeah.
and that doesn't really exist, right? We haven't done that, so we started doing that with our own stuff. With the Omni sheets that Andrew has designed that work left or right hand, live blade or trainer. We
I
successfully
love
brought
it.
this
Yeah.
out with the push daggers and the clinch pick, and then we have acquired a fairly prestigious military contract with a NATO partner that's going to put good coin in our pocket, but also is forcing us to integrate our products better with armor. We've got some
Nice.
really cutting edge, innovative things that are simple and they absolutely work to integrate our stuff with armor efficiently. So that's cool. And working with Andrew has been a huge thing. We've got we're gonna have a blade that we're going to debut here probably, I'd say 4 months. It's I'm getting some prototyping done right now. It's for a specific application that a lot of people want. So we have an offering to cover those people, and it's something I believe in too. It doesn't define me, but that's coming out. I've been field testing that for a while, and then online training. We're going to start working on that as far as shooting that content, probably in October, and then I'd say that's probably 6 to 8 months out as far as being paid subscriber content.
Awesome.
And then we're also working on 2 pieces of instructor development coursework. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to offer a Shivworks live fire retention, live fire ECQ, extreme close quarter concepts live fire instructor module. Because here's what happens, guys who are firearms instructors will come to ECQC and they suffer the evolutions and the physical stuff because they're firearms guys first and foremost, and that's what they teach and that's what they do. And they get exposed to the retention shooting and the close proximity shooting that we do, and they're like, well, this is so well defined, and the drills are so they're so on point and so precise. I want to incorporate this into my own curriculum. I can't unsee what I've seen. I was teaching, shitty retention shooting before, and I know better now, and I want to do it better. How do you feel about that? And those are the ones who ask me, right? And I know there are plenty who don't. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is basically teach people how to teach that curriculum and cover how to do a proper safety brief, at least to a Shivworks standard. How to set up a range, generalship of the range, how a PI and AI or AIs, if you have more than one people, how they have and quarter up the range, what their actual responsibilities are, the difference between single stimulus commands like whistles and timers versus using your voice, which allows you to dial the volume up and down, and then the actual things in the 5 areas of instruction within the ECQC live fire curriculum with the nuts and bolts of the actual drills and how to safely conduct those drills. So, and again, if people are going to do it, then fine, we're going to get paid for it, number one.
Yep.
And you are going to do it to the standard. You're going to do it to a published standard, number two. The company has an expectation. Look, yes, this person was exposed to our content. These are the expectations upon him getting, a piece of paper from us that says instructor, and that has an expiration date. So that's one thing we're doing. And again, that covers mainly the firearms people out there who come through coursework and want to incorporate those elements. The second thing I'm looking at doing, and this is actually the bigger challenge, is offering some type of instructor development in the MUC strategy template. So the other side of the coin are the people who are self-defense instructors, and this is particularly true with women. So I'll have a woman who occasionally carries a gun, does some firearms training, but she doesn't consistently, but she does teach other elements to women of self-defense, and when she gets exposed to MUC, obviously it becomes the linchpin of a woman's self-protection strategy, actually anybody's self-protection strategy. So again, they want to teach it or teach elements of it, or can I express your content through my lens? ish, I guess, if you do it well and do it cogently, but you can't call it the same thing. So, a couple things that are happening. We're actively trademarking some Shivworks language. That's the first thing.
Mm.
We've got a patent attorney that actively is trademarking muck, in-fight weapons access, and things like that, because it's language that I coined to mean very specific things within the Shivworks curriculum, and people are using that language as a vernacular to describe things that are not Shivworks. So that's the first thing we have to do, is take control of our language. And then the other thing is teaching people, like really doing a deep dive. There are a lot of, and there are guys even who have been training with me for years who make an attempt to teach muck, and I will see video snippets of what they offer, and they're still not getting it right. They're still not getting it right. So really going into a deep dive. Everybody thinks that managing unknown contacts is throwing your hands up, running around in the circle, and saying, "I can't help you," and that's not what it is. Okay, I talk about what it is. It's a strategy template for dealing with an approaching stranger in a place that would support a crime against a person more than another. What does it do? It's a strategy template for enhancing our awareness, avoiding problems that may be developing, and if problems are confirmed, possibly deselecting out. Managing unknown contacts is a formal way of establishing distance outside of the social norm and establishing an actual well-defined verbal boundary. And
well, Craig, I'll tell you what, I would just like to interject. For one thing, that those two modules, I wasn't really expecting you to focus on those two things, which to me that's pretty novel. The way you now muck makes sense to me that you would offer development or instructor certs in that, but the firearms thing kind of floored me. But I'm going to pat Eric on the back because he and I got to teach our first full class together, a full weekend of some firearms and combatives. And man, I was floored to be able to see Eric teach that stuff. He kicked ass at it. I was so proud. But what I'm excited about, and I hope that one of these days I would be able to get to take one of those classes or both of them, because those seem, I know that the muck part's going to be the hardest part, but that is encouraging to me because, man, being able to teach combatives, say like Eric does, man, that's a daunting task for me for sure. But man, those other modules, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and we're not,
yeah, that it does sound exciting.
And to be clear, we're not certifying somebody to as a Shivworks instructor to teach full Shivworks coursework like ECQC.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's not what we're doing.
Oh, sure. That I understood that completely.
What we want to do is give people who are incorporating fairly consistently elements of Shivworks coursework into their own coursework, and doing so well-intentioned, but usually badly, because their only exposure to it is as a student, and then they don't have the more in-depth knowledge, of why it works the way it works, right? So we're going to go into a lot more depth about stuff like that, and there again, one of the main things in the live fire portion is risk mitigation.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So how do we how is it that I've managed to teach what's considered high liability content through interpreters to lesser developed nations with people that click when they speak and not have somebody shoot themselves, right? And a lot of it is anticipating and knowing where if something's going to happen, it's going to be right here, and maybe what we do is we have a drill that has a separate draw command and a separate fire command, and we do that for 10 iterations. And then now we'll eliminate the separate fire command and let them draw and fire in one motion. And understanding, once they isolate this angle, the first time they do this on their own, there's a good chance if some of them are not running a high register, their finger is off the trigger but in line, when they speed up for that very first time and combine those two motor activities, then they may very well cook that round off prematurely. So that's why we have, the draw and fire, two separate commands in the third iteration of drill versus eliminating that and just once they have the angle, now I'm going to let them do it on their own. So there's reason for everything we do. It's not just arbitrary. It's not open for expression. It's not. Well, this is my take on Craig's material. I'm kind of tired of hearing that. It's either my material done to these standards that are well established over 21 years of work, and you have been taught by me how to properly teach that. Now, that doesn't mean you're a clone of me. That doesn't mean you have to say everything I say when I say it and the way I say it, but you have to teach it correctly, right? You can't just run around in a circle screaming, I can't help you, and call that muck. That's not what muck is. That's something else. That's something weird. That's your expression of my content definitively done badly. So I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing disappointingly guys, I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't say disappointingly, who are just, they're not teaching the material the way it should be taught, to the detail it should be taught in, leaving out critical components. I'll give you an example. I had a long-term guy recently do a muck presentation, and he elected to teach the criminal assault paradigm, and he elected to teach, he elected to skip the demonstration where I show the implications of range of time, where I measure a sleeve's length off, touch the guy, move a step, move not a shoe size back, do it again to show the change. And basically what he elected to do was just because he felt like he didn't have time based on a time constraint. He felt like the way to step over all that was, okay, we should always be trying to make distance. Now, the way we do that. So, first of all, that's a misstatement because muck doesn't make distance. And when you tell someone, hey, always be trying to make space, usually what happens is they backpedal, they turn their torso in the direction they're trying to move in an effort to get more distance, and they put themselves in bad posture. So trying to use that hack with imprecise, well-intentioned language and telling a bunch of people, all right, guys, we're trying to make space to step over the more time-intensive, and detail-oriented demonstration of range is time, and it's important that people understand that a little bit of range can have a huge impact. A little bit of change in range can have a significant impact on time and outcome. Because when you hammer that home, when you give them that demo, that's a very visceral demo, and I do it with a lot of pomp and circumstances. Pomp and circumstance, and I do it in a way that alarms people, right? Because I want to get your attention and I want you watching me. I want your engagement. So to step over that and say, hey, just we should always be trying to make space. There's nothing that there's no aha moment that they have a visual demonstration modeling of holy shit, a little bit of space doesn't actually have a huge impact on time and outcome, right? And we tell people incorrectly you should always be making space, which will set someone up to turn their hips, backpedal, and get in bad posture. Now you're not doing muck. We're not trying to make space when we manage an unknown contact. We're trying to hold the space that we have until we have resolution of the problem. And that's a lack of precision in the language and the delivery and ultimately the expression of the tactics. And when that happens by somebody that doesn't understand what they're doing, the person they teach is going to give a vaguer, more diluted, watered down expression when their first exposure to it is profound and unique, and they're going to interpret it the way they can, the best way they can. So getting into the weeds on it, and before I give somebody a piece of paper or stamp somebody off on, hey, you can do this, you can be damn rest assured that you're going to get murder boarded, as Scotty likes to put it, when I actually make you teach back. You're going to get murder boarded pretty severely. And you may, after 4 or 5 days of training, you may not get certified. People have been asking for it. Cool. It's going to be done as standard. It's going to be expensive, time and money. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. So yes, the muck portion, the muck instructor, workshop certification, but I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. That's not going to be easy. It's going to be fairly intensive.
Well, Craig, if I can add a couple of things to all your descriptions. Number one, I think it's brilliant that you guys are going with teaching the firearms piece of ECQC and the muck, and leaving the rest of it to the ECQC curriculum, your specific curriculum. I just think that because folks need to put forth their own time into all of that, and come up with their own curriculum in that realm. Yet at the same time, the two things that I've seen from the way that you enunciate, teach, and progress through the shooting piece, there's what I have seen as a major side benefit to the way that you teach that is that you can take individuals that have not been through any draw stroke work, and by the end of those, let's see, 6 to 8 hours
6,
of shooting,
yeah, total.
They leave there having the high register. They have a very deliberate reholstering process. They are extremely safe out of the holster in 6 hours versus another course, say, for instance, say level 1 course where the draw stroke is taught in some effective manner. We don't even have to name a specific one, but still not fully understand how to draw the pistol safely, reholster the pistol safely, and be a better version of that high register. So that's the one thing that I started observing through training under you and seeing it done, and then just saying, hey, this is the reason why this process is the way to do it. So I just wanted to comment because that's something I've observed over and over and over and over again, that I think is important. And number two, the muck piece being the most important piece of our self-defense capabilities, and that you would choose both of those to be what you're going to actually put forth the time and certify people. I think that was when I saw you going back and forth with some of the folks online, I thought, I get this. I think I know why Craig and Brian and Scotty are going this direction.
Yeah, because they're way more firearms instructors and unarmed self-defense instructors than interdisciplinary instructors. So giving them the best retention, and the people that are probably teaching our retention shooting are not teaching. It's probably very, very well may be a GP 101 tack handgun to 16-hour weekend class that a lot of local or regional guys offer. And they want to incorporate an hour on retention shooting in the class, and they want to have the credentials to do that. So giving those people, the firearms instructor, the orthodox firearms instructor community, permission to use our techniques taught to our standard, in our way, and giving them instructor training on how to do that. That's the first people we want to service, and then the larger self-defense community, or even the combat sports community. The combat sports community that wants a legitimate self-defense program. Where should they begin? Muck. One of the things I'm tired of seeing is a BJJ school who has an average person walk in and say, hey, I watched the UFC and it looks like those guys are tough. And I'm not interested in doing that, but I really want to be able to defend myself. Right. What I'm tired of hearing are combat sports schools say, this is more of a competition oriented school. We do traditional Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You probably need to look at Krav Maga. I've heard and seen gyms do that, I don't want to see the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community in particular abdicate self-defense at large, and I think giving a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school a muck instructor certification and having them be able to teach that, not only does it give them the most important piece for the average person in self-defense, but it also, if they can get those people in there, it's a clean school and they're decent people. Quite often, as we've seen, just having that piece available, it can be a feeder into a combat sports lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
Initially people come in wanting self-defense, but they look around, it's interesting, and it's this little toe in the water. A lot of times something like muck and self-defense just gets them in the door. So, now they are doing a combat sports lifestyle, now they're getting fitter, so on and so forth. So, Sean Lupka up in, Pittsburgh, he's had a lot of success with getting people into a jiu-jitsu lifestyle through a self-defense entry. But if you don't have the entry into self-defense, you're going to lose that person. So that's another reason to offer muck as a standalone instructor certification. And I'm not teaching people, in muck how to grapple. We're not doing that. We're not teaching them retention shooting. We're not teaching them strategies for deploying pistols and knives and clinches in ground fights. We're teaching them muck. And then whatever kung fu they have attached to it, I don't give a shit, because that's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the pre-kinetic phase, because there is no model out there right now that's available to people that's organized and repeatable to digest and then present to other people. And we're going to work on that.
Well, I would tell you it's exciting. I'm glad that you guys put forth all the time that you did. I know there's been a lot of discussion about it for a long time. I know, we've been in your presence, when we've hosted you in the past where this discussion's been going on a long time, and I could see trepidation in in the way that you discussed it with us. And I think it's because of precisely some of the things that you've delineated. And I think you were extremely deliberate in making a decision to where you're at this point. So I think it's a very exciting. I think, man, great decision on what you guys are doing with it. So
The body of work,
well,
and here's another thing, man. After when you get over 2 decades of doing something, and you literally, it's your child. Here's the bottom line: the body of work is bigger than me. The body of work that I created is bigger than me now. It is. That's the bottom line. So I'm going to have to open it, let other people, like Brian in particular. Brian's exactly 20 years younger than me. Brian is way more talented at his age as an instructor than I was at his age as an instructor. And hopefully he'll be better than me at 55 when I'm 75 and probably not doing this a whole lot. I'll probably still be doing it. But that's the first thing is if there's going to be a successor or somebody that exceeds me, and the body of work is going to be legitimate outside of Fight Club, Craig's Fight Club. Started in 1998. Literally 25 years ago. Is when we put on motorcycle helmets. Snuck in the back part of the range at Gulfport Police Department at 9 p.m. Just beat the dog shit out of each other with sim guns and MMA gloves and helmets. And we're like, let's do that again. Do that again. Do that again. We come a long way, So if it's going to get beyond that, which it has, then I have to release some of my control and see what happens, and let this develop globally into a legitimate field of study, which has always been, it's always been my interest. I've always wanted to be able to have conversations with people about similar work. And I've wanted that for years. I've wanted someone to tell me something I haven't seen or I haven't done when it comes to grappling with guns. I've wanted to see that, right? And I still want to see that. And I still want people to make observations and think of things I haven't thought of. So that requires more people working in this area, which again comes full circle back to why I'm such an adamant supporter of the summit, and that the combative summit, number one, not be a Shivworks thing, right? So I think the Combatives Association was the perfect umbrella to bring a whole bunch of people into. And we support it, but there's no generalship by me over that, which honestly makes it more inclusive.
Well, Craig, half the people that are teaching there, or probably more like a third, that I've trained with personally, and the other portion I've wanted to train with. So I think it's pretty badass. Well, Craig, I think unfortunately I've got to run out the door here pretty soon. Not that I don't want to sound like I'm cutting my main mentor off. I think honestly it's kind of a mic drop moment, because there was I think a perfect encapsulation and a good way to end the conversation. And unless you have anything else, Aaron or Craig, if you got anything else to add.
Well, I want to say that it's always fun to get to hang out with you, whether virtually or at a class. I am long overdue doing an ECQC again. So I bet you next year I'll hit one. Hopefully Eric and I can work it out to where we can either, I think Eric would like to go as a student, man.
So, it's time.
So
it would be nice.
Just thanks for hanging out with this, man. Again, it's great to have the support by someone like you for coming on our show. It's an honor. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you, man. Thank you, guys. You guys supported me for a long, long, long time. So, likewise, I appreciate it. I appreciate the goodwill over many, many years. And yeah, dude, whenever I got time and it's available, if you need it, I'll give it to you guys.
Thanks a lot, Craig. You guys have a blessed evening. Talk later.
All
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.